911 location of your emergency.
Breaking news out of North Idaho. Moscow police are investigating a homicide on King Road.
Is she breathing?
No.
So 5'10", all black. Could you see what color his eyebrows were or anything like that?
No, I don't remember what his eyes look like either.
Officers discovered the bodies of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves, but no weapon has been located at this time.
Arrested. That's 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger in custody today.
Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false.
We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
And go ahead and pull this up so that we can get started. Ooh. Like I said, it's 25 pages of his actual report, but I'll show you the full thing. Right here. Let's see. So it starts up here. We're not going to read through this page because this is just the he might testify to these things. That's the whole point of reading the entire report. So the report was written on January 22nd, 2025, or it was at least like finalized on January 22nd, 2025, because all of these were filed to the court the next day on the 23rd. So I'm going to assume it was already in works, and that's just like when you finish it off. This is his cover page, C12325. That's the purpose of the report. Okay, let's go ahead and start with that then. Let's go ahead and start with that. Okay. Let me make sure this font's big enough. I think I can make it bigger, because I like for y'all to be able to see the whole thing. Can I make it bigger? Oh, you know what? I sure can. And you can see fine. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, in Alaska. He has a lot of stuff about Alaska on his Facebook page. Okay, let's see. Purpose. The purpose of this report is to provide a forensic assessment relating to the examination of available physical and behavioral evidence in the stabbing deaths of Ethan J. Chapin, 20, Xana Kernodle, 20, Kaylee Goncalves, 21, and Maddie Mogen, 21. These homicides were determined to have occurred on November 13th, 2022, in the early hours of the morning, just after 4 a.m. However, they were not reported to 911 by surviving housemate Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen until just before noon the same day. These homicides occurred at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, a 3-story rental house with at least 2 rooms and a bathroom on each floor. Specifically, this examiner was asked to conduct a crime scene analysis of this stabbing incident by defense counsel Ann Taylor. Crime scene analysis is the process of examining and interpreting the specific features of a crime, related crime scenes, and relevant contextual information. It requires consideration of the complete forensic investigation to include context, forensic victimology, and the subsequent examination of available physical and behavioral evidence. It can also be used to infer motive. And he has a footnote of forensic victimology is required as a fundamental component in every death investigation. And we've gone through quite a bit of the victimology type report type things that they were kind of looking for. I think I think Bronx Tales. I think Logan requested the victimology reports. I don't know if she's heard back from that yet, but I think she's the one who said that she was going to ask for those. I think so. All right, let's see. Right here. Okay. As with any forensic examination, crime scene analysis also requires an assessment and consideration of the nature and quality of an underlying forensic investigation and examinations. This is a crucial step in any scientific process, necessarily to reliably establish that due diligence by government agencies has resulted in a showing of evidence integrity, and that's the second footnote. And it says, evidence integrity refers to the scientific reliability and subsequent court worthiness of any evidence that has been collected. It is demonstrated by adherence to basic protocols associated with establishing a reliable chain of custody, the protection of physical evidence while it is in custody, and its competent testing and interpretation by qualified forensic personnel. It also refers to any failure to collect, protect, and/or test essential items of evidence. In a scientific examination, evidence integrity may not be assumed, rather it must be established. Otherwise, reliable interpretations are not possible. And then it says also, and in absence of negligence for the third footnote. And then this one states, negligence refers to the failure to follow basic practice standards and protocols, resulting in a breach of a professional's duty of care. It can imply negligent action as well as the failure to act. This is especially true when the duty to take action is mandated by established agency policies, protocols, and related legal rulings or statutes. So then the paragraph itself finishes off. This scientific requirement also accommodates the legal reality that every victim and defendant has the right to access justice. This includes a competent investigation into the essential elements and evidence associated with the criminal charges brought by the state by competent forensic investigators and examiners. And here he has a fourth footnote. And it says, access to justice is a basic right for all and is solely the responsibility of the government. The response of the state to criminal complaints or lack thereof establishes the abilities and limitations set for the complainant in this regard. In the state of Idaho, related rights are explicitly and implicitly detailed in the rights of crime victims. The rights described within cannot be secured without due diligence or due process. The United States Constitution also has a due process requirement, which necessitates a thorough and competent investigation of all allegations without deception or bias. These collective declarations establish that thorough and competent investigations by the state are both a state and federal right, which can only be satisfied by the due diligence of government agents. Absent due diligence by state investigators, which is necessary for due process, individual rights may be ignored or directly even violated. Collectively, this approach strengthens scientific reconstructions and related case theory development. It also identifies areas where further investigation and forensic examination may be needed. Additionally, limitations within the available evidence can be identified to prevent or eliminate inappropriate and/or unfounded interpretations or theories. The materials examined. So this is everything that was handed to him by the defense team in order for him to do his examination. Materials examined. This examiner agreed to analyze the evidence in this case for attorney Ann Taylor in late October of 2024. Subsequently, this examiner began to receive related discovery material from her office. Upon request, this examiner was provided with and relied upon at least the following evidence to form the forensic conclusions offered in this report. See this wording right here, at the least the following evidence? That tells me that this is what was given to him. Probably this is everything that was given to him by the defense, but I feel like there's other things that he also considered, maybe outside of what was handed to him. That's how that statement definitely reads to me. Okay. So he says here he watched the related security camera videos and enhancements from the area of 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho. That would be the 1112 King Road camera. The 911 call by Bethany Funk. Related law enforcement affidavits, warrants, and reports to include the Moscow Police Department, the Idaho State Police, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. So there was FBI work handed over to Turvey. Related law enforcement photos, body cams, and videos. Related forensic investigation, examination, and criminalistic reports and photos. Autopsy reports of all 4 victims prepared by the OCME in Spokane, Washington. Autopsy photos of all 4 victims prepared by the OCME in Spokane, Washington. So right there would tell you that when he's coming out and saying that there's a chunk or a clump of hair in Ethan's hand, that he's most likely seeing a damn picture that shows his hand is still sort of clenched and there's hair in his hand. And I know that one of the DNA from the scene reports, that was the one from Ruth Ballard, is I believe her name. It says that one hair was taken from Ethan's hand and was just like physically compared to Ethan's, and it was comparable to Ethan's hair. But that doesn't mean that there was just one hair in Ethan's hand. It means they took one hair to compare it. I would really like to just see, like, even like really edited, like they don't even have to show us his entire hand. Just show us the part of his hand that actually has the hair in it. Show us. Just show us. There's ways to do it. There's ways to do it. Number 8, related cell phone interactions and related law enforcement witness interviews. So right here where it says related cell phone interactions, I'm guessing that's where the timeline would come in the book Broken Plea, in way of what was handed over to him from the people that gave him information for the book, because that's really the only place where we've seen it so far, unless he actually was given the extraction logs themselves, which some of them seem to be thousands of pages. If you read on the line of the timeline where it says the amount, like the page number. Again, though, I asked MPD for this damn timeline and they told me that it's not in their system, and Chief Dollinger went all week and did not respond to me. So I don't really know what else I'm supposed to do besides try to figure out a way to march up in that office and throw a bitch fit in person. Because, like, what other option are they giving me at this point? Like, this is ignorant. I really feel like they're ignoring the questions I'm asking because I'm all the way in Texas. So they think they don't have to take me seriously. Like, I really feel like if I actually, like, walked in there, things would change. Don't think it's not been a thought in my damn head. This list does not encompass the entirety of the discovery material provided to this examiner, which was extensive. However, it does reference the evidence that was relied upon with respect to forming forensic conclusions in this case. Additional material and specific references / documents are also cited within the body of this report. Additionally, this examiner traveled to Moscow, Idaho, and examined physical evidence in police custody at the Moscow Police Department. This occurred with the help of and under the supervision of members of the Moscow Police Department. Ann Taylor and her investigator were also present to witness and assist with photo documentation. This evidence viewing took place over the course of an entire day on December 12th, 2024. Photographs were taken of all items opened and examined, including the suspected vehicle, available bloody clothing, bedding / bed frames and mattresses. It also included examination of various knives collected during the law enforcement investigation and the K-bar knife sheath mentioned later in this report. Relevant incident background. Why did that just collapse like that? Did I want that to collapse like that? Is it going to mess up what I'm reading? Yeah, it sure will. I didn't want that to collapse. Okay. Okay, right here. Make sure this is good again. Okay. Relevant historical and contextual information regarding the law enforcement response and crime scene investigation is provided below in the supplemental narrative written by Officer Eric Warner of the Moscow Police Department. Now, we're not going to read these reports. We have gone over these reports several times. Now, these are also the copies that were sent over to the Latell County Prosecutor's Office. They're supposed to be exactly the same as the ones that we received from the Moscow Police Department. We've gone extensively into Eric Warner's and Officer Noon's because there's something that happened in Warner's that's mentioned in Noon's, and there's other flip-flopped information. And we were also trying to figure out why, if Eric Warner is the one who walked inside of Maddie's room and walked around to the left side of the bed to check her leg for lividity, there's nothing in his report about seeing the knife sheath if it was partially uncovered, meaning as you see it, like sort of a an inch hanging off of the bed where you can actually see it with the blanket still halfway over it, is how it would have been when it was originally seen when Eric Warner walked in there. And he doesn't mention absolutely anything. And again, I know that Officer Nunes was the first one on scene, but I've still found it just as odd that we do not see more regarding Blaker in all of this information, because his name is on everything hella important. And I find it strange that we don't see more happening in way of Warner coming up and testifying and being asked questions. Everything is about Brett Payne. It seems like the real key players are not actually being talked to or mentioned in here. Thank you so much for the gifted memberships, Miller Time. You just gifted 10 gifted memberships. Congratulations to the new members. Congratulations to who got those. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I just find it odd. I really feel like we should have heard more in the courtroom in way of what Blaker touched. And I really feel like when it comes to the camera that needs to be looked at, Warner's should have been considered just as important as Nunes. Again, I know that Nunes was the first responder, and he's the one who's the camera that shows everything that happened with Hunter Johnson and going into Xana's room. But Nunes didn't walk into Maddie's room first. Eric Warner did. So they're just as equally important as each other, and I don't know why they're not getting put in here the same way. And honestly, Warner's is more important because of the sheath. It just is what it is. They need to release a 30-second clip unredacted with just, well, not unredacted, but with that staticky blurring technology that I've showed you guys examples of, so that we can see. Because if that little short dude can see it from the doorway, how can big old Eric Warner, 2 feet taller than Brett Payne, not see it standing inches away from it? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. The 3-story rental house at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho was home to Xana, Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, Maddie Mogen. Xana, Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were dating, and he was asleep over at the house that night. It was also home to Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, neither of whom were reportedly approached or harmed during the incident. The homicides are reported to have occurred on November 13th, 2022, in the early hours of the morning, just after 4 a.m. This history, context, and reported information are necessary and foundational to the forensic conclusions offered within this report. This is in compliance with the national protocols for death investigation established by the NIJ. It is also in compliance best scientific practices established in the published scientific literature cited in this report. Number 2, investigative and forensic issues. The following investigative red flags are evident in this case, requiring further investigation, attention, resolution. And by the way, what page are we on? Page 8. Hold on. Let me stop sharing it for a second, because it's always going to pop up for some reason, y'all, like a thing of email addresses. But I wanted to go ahead and give y'all the link for this. So if you guys want to open this from the Google Drive and read along without having to go find it on the Idaho Case of Interest site, there's the open link for it right there. What page are we on? Page 8. Okay. Back where it was. I think that's where we had it. Yeah. Okay. These are the red flags that are evident in this case, requiring further investigative attention and resolution. A, crime scene security / physical evidence, as explained in the NIJ protocols for crime scene investigations from 2013 and death investigations from 2011 and 2024. Crime scene security and establishing and evidentiary chain of custody are essentials for, I think he meant establishing evidentiary chain of custody, not and. Okay. Chain of custody are essential for the preservation of evidence integrity. Evidence integrity is demonstrated by adherence to basic protocols associated with establishing a reliable chain of custody for evidence present in the scene. The protection of physical evidence prior to and during its collection, its protection during transportation storage, to enable competent examination, testing, and interpretation by qualified forensic personnel. It also implicitly refers to any failure to collect, protect, and/or test essential items of evidence. In scientific examinations, evidence integrity and the underlying chain of custody for any item of physical evidence may not be assumed. These must be documented and established. Otherwise, reliable interpretations and reconstructions are not possible. And look how many times things have been labeled 15 different ways. I mean, there's even an entire another case number attached to this when it comes to the Idaho State Police part of this investigation, because they decided to create a whole nother case number instead of just piggybacking the stuff about Connor Chestnut and Cole Barenberg and whatever his last name is. I always want to say Barenberger. Is it Barenberger? Neither here nor there, whatever. When it comes to them and Jack Showalter and stuff, instead of just adding it on to the one that we already had, he created a whole nother one, and it caused all kinds of back and forth issues because lab item number 1 for that case is Jack Showalter's DNA, I believe. And then lab item number 1 in the case number, that's the main one, is the freaking knife sheath. So you have to also like consider Barenberg. Okay, yeah. You have to also consider that. And like, what if somebody in the lab made some mistakes somewhere and like didn't realize? It's just a bunch. It's a bunch of just stupid altogether, just dumb stuff. Just dumb stuff. So this one the footnote here is to a book, I guess, that was written by Crowder and Turvey. And then there's a case, Sweet versus Sisters of Providence, and then something else Turvey wrote in 2013, so he's citing himself for that. In the present case, some law enforcement efforts were made to secure the crime scene subsequent to the arrival of crime scene processing personnel, to include stationing officers at the front and rear doors. However, a number of security failures are evident. These failures are a harmful impact to chain of custody and related evidence integrity. These failures, which prevent certainty with respect to who had access to the crime scene and when prior to processing efforts, include the following. Yeah, because that knife sheath is a big problem. It being like written on that 4-page report as being on the floor was just like a cherry on the top of all the rest of the bullshit cake we've already been dealing with. Because we've already had like a huge gap of time in between what was seen and when the crime scene analysts got there versus them actually getting in there and starting to process evidence. And just sitting there and watching the guys at the front and the back doors, people are coming in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. It's all over. Like they had to sit there and write them all down. We see it going on. And even though Eric Warner sits there and like Gunderson comes through, like a bunch of different people come through. What about the back door at the exact same time? What about people that can access the back of that house and they know how to get in and do certain things? We also know we had that ATF officer that wasn't an ATF officer. He was an impersonator walking through the crime scene. I wonder if he's going to mention the ATF officer in this report. That would have been a huge red flag to me that was allowed to happen. So we'll see if he mentions it. Number 1. 8 hours unsecured. The scene was not secure for approximately 8 hours prior to the arrival of law enforcement. During this extended time frame, the remaining housemates and other potential persons entered, moved about freely, and exited the home without their movements being documented. This is true. Like, we hear all kinds of shit going on in those cameras, but it's just sound. And we can try to guesstimate what we're hearing. Sometimes it sounds like a car stopped literally right in front of the freaking house. Sometimes it sounds like a car door. Sometimes it sounds like someone's walking in the parking lot, but it's just noise. Like, we can't guarantee what it is. The only thing we really have proof of when it comes to that timestamp, when it comes to that camera for after the fact, is like right around the time of them getting called and the 911 call happening, because you can sort of hear like the talking outside. But as for like when exactly, if people were coming in and out, we can't hear that. We can't see that. You can't see behind the house. So it does really suck that we don't have a better view of that. Can you imagine if there was actually a camera facing the parking lot the way that it sounds like there is in Brent Payne's report regarding Molly? That would be some crazy shit. This reality has the inescapable effect of disturbing and confounding the physical evidence as it would ultimately be discovered and secured by law enforcement. These evidence dynamics are not noted as detrimental in subsequent collection or examination efforts, despite having a negative impact on chain of custody and related evidence integrity. Number 2, the activity of Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were not approached or attacked during this incident. This despite being awake and texting with each other at the time, 4 a.m., with Dylan reporting that she saw an intruder outside of her bedroom door. Their digital activity appears to have continued after this, indicating that both were awake, texting, and making phone calls before their reported activity in relation to calling friends, family, and eventually 911. And yes, even though there is a bigger gap in between Bethany's activity, there's still several different segments of huge gaps of time where she is awake and doing things on her phone before the call goes in to the 911. Emily Allant was contacted by Dylan Mortensen at around 11:50 a.m. Emily was reportedly asked to come over and check on the house with her boyfriend, Hunter Johnson. Hunter Johnson did so as described below. He actually got there first. He hurried up and put his shoes on and walked over there before Emily was even off the phone, is how they've described it. Prior to the arrival of Emily and Hunter, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk had unfettered access to all areas of the residence, but reported not leaving Bethany's room, which we also know is false because just the couple of lines that we do have from that timeline, there's one big one that shows Dylan climbing 2 flights of stairs. And if she was on the first floor, that puts her on the 3rd floor. And there's no way you're going to the 3rd floor and you're not looking around. I also realized after the fact that apparently in the new drop of the bushy eyebrow information, there's more unreleased different information in Dylan's interview than we originally had gotten from the pieces that have already been unsealed. Something about her actually seeing Xana's lips. Do you know how close you would have had to have gone down that hallway in order for Dylan to have been able to have seen Xana's lips? So we're going to be going over that because I didn't realize that when we were first looking at it. I thought it was just all the same. That's my bad. But to be able to say that you saw Xana's lips, knowing what position she was on the floor, her face was turned towards the window in the mirror. So how close did Dylan get? All the way down the hallway, turned on the light? Exactly. How the hell would that have even been possible? It says it. I was shocked when I ran across it too. I was like, oh shit, my bad, guys. I thought this was the same information that was already crackadoodle, where she's telling everyone that she knows her dreams are lucid and she's in control, and she just allows whatever's trying to kill her and R-word her and do all the crazy things just to go ahead and let it happen because she knows it's just a dream. So she just lets it happen. You know? Yeah. We're probably going to have to go over that like tomorrow maybe. Because like that's a big deal. Actually, maybe not. I think I'm going to wait. Because I don't know how long it's going to be before we finally get Dylan's full-on unsealed interview. So I think I'm going to try to go in and just record myself reading just the unsealed pieces that we do have that are not there over in the interview itself where it's like blanked out because it has timestamps. I think I can pretty much put it in there. At least doing that, we might be able to see how much is still missing of the stuff that was redacted from that interview. So maybe that's what I'll do to make it feel a little bit more complete. Yeah, that was wild to see. We're definitely going to have to read through that. Okay. It is unclear whether law enforcement fully investigated and established the activity in the home during this 8-hour interval, or why police/EMS were not called, despite concerns about one of their housemates being passed out and non-responsive. I mean, not just that, but I mean, like, shit, especially at this point, if you're saying stuff like, oh, you were close enough to see her lips, and you still didn't call 911? And then we're hearing the autopsy lady, the medical examiner, is not coming out and saying, oh, it was quick deaths, that they didn't feel anything, it was over in seconds, all the bullshit that they've been telling us, that they dealt with excruciating pain, that it was not fast the way that we were told. Everyone, like, not everyone, but there were a lot of really stupid ass people that talked all kinds of shit to me and pretty much anyone else when we were like, but 911 could have maybe saved someone's life. And it doesn't matter to me even still. I really am wondering if the reason why, and I've mentioned this before, I have wondered if the reason why Kaylee's body is cuddled up, posed next to Maddie the way that it was, is because she somehow didn't die right away. And she had enough energy to get close enough to Maddie, and she died next to her. That kind of shit happens. And I know Steve's probably like, oh my God, this is not a movie. Okay, well, it's also real life where people don't die instantly, and then they're dying next to someone that they love, and they do everything they can to get close enough to them before they finally succumb to their injuries. That's real. That happens. 911 might have actually saved someone's life. Would she have been horribly disfigured? Probably, the way that they've talked about her face. But maybe real justice would have actually happened if 911 would have been called and she was able to just say something, write something. Again, same with Xana. Like, I know she had a whole bunch of injuries and she fought like hell. But if she fought like hell, who's to say that she wasn't maybe still breathing a little? You know? With all the changes and what's come out, especially with what the medical examiner said, knowing that Dylan, like knowing that and knowing that they didn't die right away and knowing that they have Dylan admitting to seeing bodies on the floor and hearing all these things, I just don't understand how she's not in some sort of more trouble. I don't care. She was an adult. If she can make adult decisions on everything else and live on her own outside of her parents' house, then she should have been held accountable for something. That's insane to me. The evidence here for that. It's just actually crazy. Like, actually crazy. And another part that's really wild is, like, I know that it looks like, well, a lot of people say it looks like Dylan's hair had been washed and it sort of was just like left to dry kind of look. And it does look interesting, to say the least. I don't understand why they didn't take their clothes. I don't understand why they didn't drug test them. I mean, they literally could have just asked for their clothes because you were in the house. Those are the clothes you were wearing at the time that the murders took place. You're witnesses to whatever noises you were hearing or whatever you saw. We've got to take your clothes in, plain and simple. When it comes to drug testing, maybe they would have had to have gotten a warrant just because, like, okay, yeah, you said that, you know, you were drinking a little bit, but you're texting back and forth, and we see that you're conscious enough to have these conversations and to call all these people and call outside the house and all these other things, which, again, she also lied about that. She contacted Quinn, and in the damn interviews, she's being asked if she's contacting someone outside the house, and she says no. She lies about everything. For what? Girl, like, if it's not for a bad reason, then why are you lying? I just don't get it. If they were boys, they would not have been treated like that. They would have made to have probably gone down to the police department in the back of a cop car, maybe not arrested, maybe not Mirandized, but they definitely would have been escorted down to the police department in a cop car. And they would have not have been handled like little babies. That's not how that would have happened if those were boys. Number 3, the activity of Hunter Johnson. After the arrival of Emily Allant and Hunter Johnson, 911 was called at 11:56 a.m. When officers arrived on scene, minutes later, they encountered Hunter Johnson inside the residence. Hunter reported that he arrived at about 15 to 20 minutes prior to law enforcement and entered the home at the request of his girlfriend, Emily Allant. He didn't say anything about 15 or 20 minutes before the call. I didn't hear him say that at all. The way that it went down with the timestamps that we currently have, okay, we have to go based off of the timestamps we have. Emily Allant got the call at 11:50, and the 911 call was made at 11:56. Those are the timestamps that we have. Again, that's what we have to go off of, the phone timestamps, okay? We also listened to Noon's body cam and Warner's in way of him talking to Johnson. He doesn't say anything about 15 or 20 minutes prior to that. It's been 5, you know, like since the call came in. So I don't know why that's like a long time. Putting that in there when it's not technically true to the evidence itself, we don't hear him say that and we don't see that in the timestamps. That causes problems. That's the truth of that. That's just the truth of that. That causes issues. Johnson immediately admitted to entering and moving around within the house moving a knife from the kitchen to the beer pong table on the second floor to be used for his own self-defense, and checking the pulse of one of the victims. Why are we the only people that noticed that that damn knife was on the floor? Are we the only people that realized that the knife was on the floor? And remember, Emily Allant's interview, she literally states there was a knife on the floor. And that is as she is walking up the steps, and Hunter is turning around from Xana's room and coming back down the hallway with what's supposed to have already been the knife from the kitchen. So if he already had the knife in his hand from the kitchen, as he's coming back from Xana's room to stop his girlfriend from walking up to the second floor so that she doesn't see her best friend dead and full of blood all over the place, okay, then how come Emily is seeing the knife on the ground? We hear it kerplop onto the table as Nunes is in Xana's room. How come none of them mention that? None of them have mentioned that. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Law enforcement documented this activity. However, is unknown what other movements throughout the home occurred that could have altered the existing evidence. These evidence dynamics are not noted as detrimental in subsequent collection or examination efforts, despite having a negative impact on chain of custody and related evidence integrity. Yeah, I need to know why no one else is talking about the knife. It's kind of strange that no one else is mentioning the fact that it was on the ground. Number 4, evidence dynamics / multiple officers. On officer body cams, multiple officers can be observed entering the first floor entrance, moving through the different rooms, up both sets of stairs, and walking around on different floors. While somewhat unavoidable, these movements throughout the home could have altered and even obliterated existing physical evidence. These evidence dynamics are not noted as detrimental in subsequent collection or examination efforts and have a negative impact on chain of custody and related evidence integrity. B, crime scene security / interview and suspect integrity at the scene. A basic consideration with respect to preserving the integrity of witness and suspect interviews is the immediate separation of persons at the scene. This helps to prevent collusion and narrative manipulation before or in the moment of a preliminary law enforcement interview. Law enforcement personnel failed with respect to this basic duty of care. Specific failures which prevent reliability with respect to the statements taken at the scene and resulted in the abandonment of physical evidence, including the following. Now, there are no written reports. I asked Moscow for written witness statements from all of them, from Dylan, from Bethany, from Emily, from Josie, from Hunter, and from Lyndon, and they told me that they didn't exist. So all they did was talk to them at the scene and then talk to them at the police station. And so I guess they're just considering that good enough. I figured they would still have had them write something. But we tried and they said no. Number 1, as observed on law enforcement body cams, all witnesses were allowed to gather outside. All witnesses were allowed to gather together. Keyword there, outside on the street for an extended period of time within law enforcement view, but well out of earshot. Yeah, and I don't understand why they were allowed to huddle like that. Again, witnesses in that situation should have been separated. That seems to be normal protocol no matter what the crime is. There's still a standard that was followed. And I know a lot of people are going to always give them the benefit of the doubt and say, oh my God, they've never dealt with the quadruple homicide. Okay, well, have they ever dealt with anything? Because there's a basic ass protocol for everything and none of that was followed. Witnesses get separated. They don't get to huddle around outside and get their story straight. They definitely don't get to just like take off and go somewhere else before going to the police department when there's a murder case. Okay, they're not allowed to go and shower and change clothes and all that other crazy shit. And then consider also Hunter Johnson. Hunter Johnson showed up in shorts. And then he goes to the police department and his pants are changed. And that shouldn't have been allowed. He shouldn't have been allowed to change his clothes. He walked in, he's admitting he touched one of the victims. He's admitting he walked around the house and grabbed a knife. Why are you allowing him out of your sight before he goes to the police department after he's done who knows what and changed his pants? Innocent or not, I don't give a single shit. Why is that the protocol? Why is that the protocol? It doesn't matter if they are suspicious or if they're not suspicious. Simply their position in this case means that certain things were supposed to happen with them, and those things did not happen. Same thing with Murphy. Why in the actual hell would you have just taken him down to the animal shelter and not held him there at the scene so that a forensic investigator or a forensic examiner, a forensic vet even, somebody could go in and comb his hair? See if there was anything on it. These officers don't know. Did they even touch him to see if he was wet? Did they even bother to see if he smelled like fresh shampoo? Nothing about the dog was looked at. These protocols were shit. These protocols were complete shit. And did y'all know, by the way, that the Chapins have the same dog? I think I've known that, but for some reason, it just never really like hit me, and it probably means nothing, but a lot of people have questions about Murphy. And I noticed that they have a golden doodle. They had a golden doodle in a lot of Ethan's old photos, which I didn't realize that. Okay, so number 2. As observed on law enforcement body cams, none of the surviving witnesses from inside the home were properly interviewed on scene by responding officers. This is generally done to get a preliminary or rough version of events by those who observed it firsthand. It also better informs the safe entry of law enforcement, the search for others that may be or should be in the home, and evidence search/preservation efforts. Without this information, it is difficult to separate victim from suspects once inside the scene, the result of which could be additional tragedy. The result of which could be additional tragedy. I just saw something. Hey there, Penguin. Thank you for being a member for so long. Separating witnesses is Police Academy Day 1. See my point? I know. Especially if you walk in and the guy is telling you that he went in there and he touched one of the deceased. Why would you let him just straight up out of your sight to change clothes? Odd, right? I feel like that's definitely your basics. Regardless of crime, there are certain things that are supposed to take place. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just no reason for it. There really is no reason for it. And if this is how they're conducting their stuff with everything, how many other cases are just okay, we're just going to write this and not take our notes with us when we write a search warrant, and things are going to get flip-flopped and everything else. Remember what happened with Nunes? We got his handwritten report, his handwritten notes. And in his handwritten notes, when he's sitting there and he's talking to Dylan and he's writing shit down on that clipboard, he has Xana and Ethan together and Maddie and Kaylee together, but then he doesn't take his notes and stuff with him to file the search warrant. And in the search warrant is where he starts flipping them around and get Xana and Kaylee mixed up. If he would have taken his notes with him, that wouldn't have happened. So how many search warrants, how many things were written incorrectly, information flip-flop, stuff inputted wrong because they're not following their notes or following protocols or anything else. It's just lazy. It's just lazy. Number 3. As observed on law enforcement body cams, the witnesses gathered outside of the crime scene were allowed to leave the scene by law enforcement prior to being subject to a preliminary interview and identity confirmation. Exactly. And I don't remember exactly what time it was. An hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe. I can't remember exactly when it was. But we have this vehicle showing up at the Moscow Police Department and everyone just getting out of the car. Hunter, Emily, Bethany, Dylan, all of them. Maisie, Hunter Chapin, they all just get out of the vehicle together. I don't even remember how long it was. I don't even remember how long it was, but it was well over an hour. I want to say an hour and a half. It was a while. I need to go in and get the timestamp for when they actually showed up. Okay, C. Abandoned forensic evidence. As observed on law enforcement body cams and later law enforcement reports, there was negligent failure and professional abandonment with respect to reported crime scene evidence. This extreme professional abandonment, which evidences a lack of crime scene education, training, and experience, include the following. 1. As observed on law enforcement body cams, all of the witnesses, including the surviving housemates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, were allowed to leave the scene by law enforcement without being examined for blood evidence, injury, or trauma, without the examination or collection of their clothing or shoes, and without checking their persons for items of evidence. This is necessary for both the identification and documentation of potential physical evidence and negative documentation with respect to its absence. This is nothing short of professional abandonment of pertinent crime scene evidence. Number 2, as evidenced in crime scene photos and evidentiary reports, law enforcement generally photographed but did not document and collect, aka process, the first floor bathroom. It had a trash can, but unlike the other bathrooms in the home, there were limited hygiene and cleaning products, no floor mat, and no towels. That's not true. In the photographs that we got from 1/20/26, I believe is when it is the one. There's a dirty towel hanging on a hook. Well, I want to say dirty towel because it's on a hook, and usually you bring it in folded, and then after you use it, you hang it up to like dry on the hook. But there's one behind the door. I can't remember if it's like right on the door itself or if it's on the wall behind the door. But there's a towel. There's a towel. There's other things. There's body wash and shampoo and stuff in the bathtub. There's no toilet paper. This is something that we talked about. I think it was either yesterday or day before, because in Lakeland's interview, she says how when they get home, she really had to use the restroom and she walked through the front door. And instead of using the restroom right there in front of your face, when you walk through the front door of 1122, she goes up to the second floor, takes pictures of Ethan's clothes on the floor for some reason, but uses the second floor bathroom. So if there was no toilet paper in the first floor bathroom, then that would make sense. Like she probably walked in there, realized there wasn't any toilet paper, and then just went ahead and went up to the second floor. So while it is a lot emptier, it's not sterilized. Like this is literally, and you have to be serious. You cannot be completely biased on one side when you're looking at this kind of stuff. Okay. The same stupidity, okay, that we go off of when it comes to the state saying that Bryan Kohberger's car was meticulously clean, even though there was gum wrappers and water bottles and old receipts and all kind of shit in that car. Same thing here. They've come out in interviews and tried to make this seem like that bathroom was sterilized completely, like there was literally nothing in it, nothing at all. And that's not true, guys. There's stuff in that bathroom. Not as much as you would think. Maybe Bethany just doesn't keep her stuff in there. It's her floor bathroom. I don't know. But they can't sit there and say that it was completely sterilized, like it was scrubbed clean or like not used at all, and make it seem more suspicious than it really is in real life when you look at the photos. The same way that we say that about the car situation for Bryan Kohberger's car with the state. It's on the same line. It's on the same line. So you have to be real about that. And that's how I feel about the whole bathroom thing. The trash can, toilet, and bathtub/shower should have been... See, he's also missing words in here the same way that Cy Ray was. So are they just, like, careless? Like, I'm noticing a lot of the same just rushy type errors in these. It's like they've gotten so used to just writing up reports really, really quick that they don't take their time to check things. It's just small little errors like that. The trash can, toilet, and bathroom/shower should have been carefully documented in situ and photographed, collected into evidence, examined for bloody transfer and cleanup efforts, and tested for DNA. The drain for sure, which they didn't do any drain work, which was really annoying because I don't know why they decided not to do any drain work whatsoever, but they literally just on the drains, even like in the kitchen, they didn't do anything with the drains, which I just don't freaking understand why. That was my first question, like on day 2, was if they checked the drains. Dumb. Number 3, as evidenced in crime scene photos and evidentiary reports, law enforcement generally photographed but did not document and collect, aka process, evident clothing on the floor, footwear, towels, floor mats, dirty laundry from the hamper, clothing from inside the washer dryer. This would be the second floor bathroom. The trash, the inside of the shower stall, or apparent urine and toilet paper in the toilet from the second floor bathroom. All of these items should have been carefully documented in situ and photographed, collected into evidence, examined for bloody transfer and cleanup efforts, and tested for DNA. See right here where it says should have been carefully documented. He copy and pasted that exact same mistake into every single one of his points right here. Jesus Christ. Okay. Number 4, as evidenced in crime scene photos and evidentiary reports, law enforcement generally photographed but did not document and collect towels, floor mat, trash, the inside of the shower stall, or the toilet in general from the 3rd floor bathroom. All of these items should have been carefully documented in situ and photographed, collected into evidence, examined for bloody transfer and cleanup efforts, and tested for DNA. Based on a review, we're talking about Blue Star. Based on a review of the provided evidence, none of these areas in the home, to include areas of potential cleanup, were examined with presumptive chemical reagents, such as luminol or Blue Star, to search the scene for additional blood evidence. Such field testing is both standard and essential with respect to indoor cases involving even low levels of blood evidence or potential blood flow/blood transfer. Number 6. In early January of 2023, the defense intervened to preserve and collect extensive physical evidence left behind at the crime scene and prevent its destruction by law enforcement. Well, at the end of that 2023, it went bye-bye. Much of this evidence had received observable blood transfer evidence in the form of contact smears, drops, and spatter. To be clear, law enforcement negligently failed to preserve and collect a long list of items from victim bedrooms, other bedrooms, and the house in general. They also inappropriately released personal items belonging to the victims and surviving housemate members before independent examination efforts could be made, as indicated by the supplemental narrative provided below. Number 7. At the instruction of the defense, law enforcement returned to the scene on 1/6/23 and collected 10 items to include bed frames, mattresses, pillows, and blankets covered with blood transfer evidence. Yeah, that was really insane. That the state themselves did not take in the bed frames, and the mattresses that the bodies were found on. They were just left in the house. It was the defense that collected the bed frames and the mattresses with all of the blood transfer on it. You would think that the state would want to collect all of that. It's literally what the bodies were on. It's actually crazy. These items had been left behind at the scene during law enforcement processing efforts and were scheduled to be destroyed along with the house. Isn't that wild? Okay, so I'll go ahead and read this supplemental report, because this is something to do with that situation about things that were picked up from the house, I guess. So this is Dustin Blaker's number 140, photos of items requested to be held by the defense team. And see right here how it says 108. Item 108 is also Bryan Kohberger's cheek swab from 1/5/23 when he got transferred over to Latah County. I hate how they use the same numbering systems. Yes, and then they're holding it next to the car. It's literally in the same room, 3 to 4 maybe feet away from Bryan Kohberger's car. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, y'all can't even see that. Okay, my computer screen is in my regular camera, but the way that it's cut, you can't see it. So I didn't want that blocking anything. Yeah, it's literally up against the wall, leaning on the wall, 4 feet away from Bryan Kohberger's car. Isn't that crazy? Just laying there, just sitting there, next to the suspect's vehicle. It's like they're hoping that the wind will just blow some little dried blood fragments or some dead skin cells over to Kohberger's car so they can be like, oh, we're going to retest it. Oh, look, magically. We just set the mattress next to the bed for no reason. That's fucking crazy. Oh, my God. This case is crazy. Just definitely would not be handled like this if somebody with some common damn sense was in charge with anything. Absolutely crazy. Okay. On February 2nd, 2023, at around 8 o'clock, Corporal Brent Payne and myself responded to the secure storage area at the city shop to take photos of property belonging to Dylan Mortensen and another unidentified female. What the hell does that mean? I don't remember reading that before. And another unidentified female. Moscow police had previously removed items belonging to Dylan, Bethany, Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. Items had also been removed from a spare bedroom on the first floor. Ann Taylor, defense counsel, was granted permission to go through these items to see what could be released back to the proper owners. Prior to Ms. Taylor being given a chance to look at these items, property belonging to Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee had already been released. MPD had also given Dylan back her belongings, but we were able to get her to return them. Ms. Taylor requested we set aside the following items from Dylan's belongings. So when Dylan's stuff was given back to the police, that jacket was in there. But then later on, there's a meeting that takes place between Dylan and her attorney and them. And she says that it doesn't look familiar. It's not hers. But I think her blood was on it. There's actually reports showing that were released, again, I believe, with Ruth Ballard, where it said something about how they did actually populate a DNA profile from the green jacket, and it was Dylan's. Apparently, it was Dylan's blood, which we're going to be going over. Hopefully, we go over. I'm going to keep letting y'all choose. I'm going to keep letting y'all vote on the one that we go over. Guys, I don't think anybody voted for the car one. I don't think the car got a damn vote at all. Let me check. I know when I checked it right before, whenever it was time for me to schedule out the live, it had no votes. Nobody at all cared about that damn car one whatsoever. It's got 2%. So that means one person wanted to go over the car stuff. But this one for Dr. Turvey won by 55%. Yeah, I think I'm going to let y'all just keep choosing, and I'll just go through the list, and I'll just throw 3 or 4 on there for you guys to choose from for when we go over these, so that you guys can just decide which one you want to hear. So items from Dylan's belongings: a handwritten note, pink and white blanket with red hearts, pink and white cloth, possibly used as a curtain or decoration. So probably one of the ones that look like a white. Oh my God. It looks like a sheet, but it's like a backdrop, and it has the black outline of the girl. I think that's what they're talking about. Black and white Van shoes, red and white unknown brand shoes, and black and white Converse shoes. Items from the spare rooms. Okay, so here's the spare room with the green and pink jacket. Adidas black and white short sleeve t-shirt, a size small, and the green and pink coat with an unknown brand. The above items were placed in cardboard boxes and set aside until Ms. Taylor can get a court order stating she can take the items. It should be noted that this extreme level of physical evidence abandonment and the improper release of physical evidence back to family members and those who need to be eliminated as suspects is rare. Primarily because it is understood that everything with blood on it needs to be examined and tested. No shit. You think that'd be kind of normal, right? Moreover, it is generally understood that suspect exclusion efforts in residential homicides must begin first with those known to be inside the home at or around the time of the murders. And now he's going to start talking about Leigh Murphy. Hey there, Accomplished Day. Thank you so much for the gifted memberships. Thank you. Congratulations to those who got those. We've got 20 new members this live. Tapestry, that's the freaking word. That's the word I had on my brain, but my brain was not sending the word to my face. I was like, what the freak? I couldn't figure out the damn word. Okay. Thank you again for the gifted memberships. We have 20 new members this live. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Congratulations, guys. Okay. This is D. Murphy, the barking dog. Well, I know it has to be Murphy barking at some point, but we also know from going in and really listening after we got, all the footage and we sat down and we really started listening to it. There's definitely multiple dogs of multiple sizes barking on that camera frame. Bigger dog. We hear a bigger dog than the first dog that we hear. We hear a little bittier dog. We also know there's several dogs that we see walking around the area. you know? We see a cat walking around the parking lot. But there's also a segment of time that was brought to our attention a couple weeks back, about a month ago now at this point, where it looks like, I think it was like the 6 o'clock hour. It looks like a dog walking by the dumpster by Jack Decor's house. And it's definitely not a cat. It's doing the whole head down on the ground, sniffing, fast walking thing that dogs do when they're looking for a place to potty, you know, all the sniffy stuff. And you see it for like, like very short amount of time, but and again, the camera's far away. It's crap camera. But considering the dogs that we have seen around there, I mean, the damn thing looks like it could have been Murphy too. And again, we can't see the path. The path between Jack Decor's house and 1122, it has footsteps through it. That's literally where the damn prints are in the backyard, is like going towards that direction. That there could have been traffic going back and forth between Jack Decor's house and that house all night long, and we would have never known. We would have absolutely never known. So it says the barking dog. According to an affidavit by Brett Payne of the Moscow PD, the third floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Goncalves, hereafter Goncalves' room. I later learned from reviewing of Officer Noon's body cam, there was a dog in the room when Moscow police officers initially responded. The dog belonged to Goncalves and her ex-boyfriend Jack Decor. It blew our minds to hear Jack say that he'd never wanted Murphy and he had told her no, he didn't want to get a dog. That is so wild. I found out from my interview with Jack Decor on November 13th, 2022, that he and Goncalves shared the dog. OFC Smith then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the 3rd floor. This bathroom shared a wall with Maddie Mogen, hereafter Mogen bedroom, which was situated on the southeast corner of the 3rd floor. At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times, starting at 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. Law enforcement, he was citing the PCA. The citation's over. Law enforcement discovered the dog, Murphy, in Kaylee's room, on her bed, calmly sitting. The dog did not have blood on its feet or fur and did not seem interested in the fact that its owner had been killed with the body just a few yards away, except there were paw prints in Maddie's room that were left, meaning to me that the dog had to have maybe had condensation of some sort on its paws or some sort of substance on its paws to make it leave that impression in there, because it's not like an edited photo that's just like been posted from someone else. It's literally in the ISP drop. You can see the impression of the paw. At 4, okay. Law enforcement later discovered dog tracks. Oh, he actually says it. Awesome. Law enforcement later discovered dog tracks inside the bedroom and outside on the open balcony door. At 4:17 a.m., the dog had started barking. This lasted for around 30 minutes and then abruptly stopped. The relevance of this in relation to law enforcement theory that Bryan Kohberger left the crime scene at 4:20 a.m. has apparently not been investigated by law enforcement. Yeah, because the dog continues on for a long-ass time. E. Suspect bias. A review of investigative efforts indicates that none of those at the scene or from inside the house were questioned or investigated as though they were a suspect, which is crazy. The amount of cases that have come out where it's a young female that has done some crazy ass scary shit is like, how can you just sit there because they're cute little blondes and just have no thoughts whatsoever that they could be doing, that they could have done something crazy, especially as a law enforcement officer? Like, are you not keeping yourself up to date with the kind of stuff that's been going on in the world? Like, honestly, it just blows my mind. The vast majority of investigative efforts by law enforcement focused on the theory that there was only one suspect, that this suspect entered without permission, and that this suspect did not reside in the home. Once Bryan Kohberger became a suspect, no other investigative avenues were pursued. None. And the ones they were pursuing got shelved. Insane. All of Kohberger's activity before and after the homicides became a matter of intense law enforcement focus and was subsequently viewed through a theory of guilt. Notably, none of the defendant's activity investigated by law enforcement has been found to be criminal or suggestive of attempting to evade criminal charges. And remember, in the beginning, they tried to act like he was fleeing the state because he went home to Pennsylvania on a planned ass trip home during Christmas break. Crazy ass people. F, suspect vehicle/vehicle footage. Law enforcement have theorized that a vehicle or vehicles seen on security footage observed driving by or near the crime scene that night matches the description of the vehicle registered to and driven by defendant. The relevance of this theory rests on the assumption that the defendant is guilty of these crimes. Despite law enforcement theories related to the defendant's movements that night, there is no evidence or testimony which conclusively identifies either a suspect vehicle involved in the case or the defendant's vehicle as being connected to this crime. This is based on the following facts and evidence. Number 1, related reports and testimony from FBI experts have failed to conclusively identify this says identity, but he meant identify, failed to conclusively identify the suspect vehicle in this case. The failure to be absolutely clear and forthcoming about this evident fact would be evidence of bias. The defendant's vehicle is a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra, license plate CFB 8708. This was theorized by law enforcement to have been a suspect vehicle associated with this case. It was subsequently seized by the Pennsylvania State Police, transported to the Moscow Police Department, and examined. And they found nothing. And again, they lie and say that it was meticulously cleaned and sterilized and like, oh, you know the little creases in your door where there's all the crud? There was nothing in there either. But there was empty water bottles and Band-Aids and gum wrappers and like all kinds of other shit. All kinds of other shit. So ridiculous. So ridiculous. Thank you for the $4.99, Kim. Poor Murphy, praying he's happy and healthy. Yeah, I can't honestly imagine like what he would have heard, the smells he was encountering, what he could have seen. Like, this is why I hate the fact that people are so stupid when it comes to these big brains that are working on technology. I really hate it. Like, if they can put a chip in your spine at the bottom of your brain where it goes into like your neck so that you can start walking again, if they can literally cure paralysis with a freaking implant of a chip to your brain, Google it. It's wild. Okay, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. Then why can't they find something where they can, I don't know, maybe try to like figure out what the dogs are thinking, what their emotions are, maybe when they're barking, what the frequencies might mean. Like, the technology is there. You know how many crimes would be solved if we could communicate with just the dog? Just the dog in general. If we could communicate with dogs in general, you know how many crimes would be freaking solved because they could literally point out by smell and by sight the actual person they saw committing something? It sounds sci-fi, I know that, but we're doing all kinds of crazy shit with technology. All kinds of crazy shit, okay? I mean, a couple years ago, Don came in here tripping because he had just watched a little video on YouTube about how a parrot had solved a murder. And again, I've always wondered why they never, because we've never heard them say that they have, never put Murphy in the same room as Bryan Kohberger. That dog would have smelt a smell that would have triggered a memory of that night, and the dog would have had a reaction. And if the dog just went up to him and acted like a normal-ass dog and was nice and friendly, that's a big problem. But if Murphy gets aggressive or starts crying or gets like all scared, that's a sign. I wish they would do more with that kind of stuff. I wish they would do more with that kind of stuff. For real, for real. Okay, number 3. As will be discussed in the subsequent section of this report, the suspects involved in committing these homicides would have been covered in blood as a result of the extraordinary amount of blood spatter and necessary blood transfers. This includes hands, arms, legs, feet, and related clothing, which would have transferred onto and into any suspect's vehicles in relation to opening doors, entering seats, adjusting the seats or mirrors, closing doors, inserting keys, using the gear shift, and using the steering wheel. All of these being necessary actions or movements for the successful operation of a motor vehicle. These transfers can be microscopic and can be detected using presumptive chemical reagents such as luminol and blue star. And another thing is they constantly always say how Bryan Kohberger's car was completely sanitized and clean, but whose car showed up vacuumed? Freshly vacuumed with the vacuum track still in the seats. Eric Gower. Okay. Number 4. Despite an extensive and exhaustive forensic examination of the defendant's vehicle for bloody clothing, blood transfer, and other evidence related to these crimes, down to the metal, none was found. This has essentially excluded the defendant's vehicle as being related to the commission of these crimes. The failure to be absolutely clear and forthcoming about this evident fact would be evidence of bias. Additional investigative and forensic issues are present. However, these are among the most relevant and concerning. Number 3, reconstruction. The physical evidence in this case supports the following constructions of the evidence. A, points of entry/exit. Aside from the windows, which are impractical or evidently undisturbed, there are 3 points of entry into the residence. On the first floor, there is a door facing the parking area, which requires a key code to open. Lots of issues with that door. It opens into a stairwell on the left, which provides access to the second floor. It also provides access to a hallway that services the rooms and bathroom on the first floor. It is unknown how many people have had access to this door, but it is believed to be many, as this was a well-known party house. There is no sign of forced entry at this location. On the second floor, there is a sliding glass door, which was found to be opened by law enforcement. It has been inferred that this is the location where the suspect or suspects may have entered or at least exited. There is no physical evidence to support this, as, again, there would need to be the requisite bloody transfer. Yeah, the only thing that they're getting from that, besides the door being open when the police got there, is that Dylan is claiming that the person that she saw was going in the direction of. Now, somehow along the way, it switched and went from walking in the direction of the backslider to all of a sudden, as the person was walking out of the backslider, they locked eyes. But that is not her original testimony. That is not her original testimony at all. There is no physical evidence. Okay, right here. If an intruder left the house through this door, having left it open upon entry, there would need to be bloody footwear patterns on the floors from bloody shoes or feet, both leading up to and out of that sliding glass door. On the third floor, there is a sliding glass door in Kaylee Goncalves' room, which opens to a balcony. This balcony is where dog tracks were found. So it is a possibility that he was out on the balcony when he was barking his head off and then went back into the room instead of running around. Because, I mean, like, I feel like we maybe would have seen him on camera if he was running around outside. So I have questioned if maybe he was on the balcony. I know that the way that it sounds made it sound as if he could have been running around on the bottom, because it would get like really, really close. And damn, man, like there's at least like 2 or 3 separate times while the barking is going on where it sounds like it's right at the camera. So I thought maybe he was just running from like the front to the back all the way around. Like that's why it sounded sometimes like it was in an echo chamber. Like maybe he was on the other side on the road that leads to the back parking area. Sometimes like closer to 1112, because it would literally sound like it was in your ear. But it's very possible too. It could just be the way that the sound was moving through that area because of the way that the actual area itself is shaped, the trees, if it's a bowl, if it's a hill, if it's a decline, incline, all of that matters in way of the way that sound travels. So I guess it's possible he was just on the balcony, tripping out, running back and forth, running in and out. I don't know. But the door was open. Both sliding doors were open. Third floor / Kaylee Goncalves and Maddie Mogen. Kaylee and Maddie were discovered in Kaylee's bedroom on her bed. Both were deceased through a complete linear reconstruction of events, though a complete linear reconstruction of events is not possible. The available physical evidence supports the following relevant events and conclusions. Now, this is probably a picture of them on the bed that we wouldn't have been able to see anyway because it should have been redacted. Okay, number 1. Madison suffered multiple sharp force injuries. As described in the autopsy report, post-mortem examination showed a well-developed adult female with stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 13, stab wounds of the chest, 5, and incised wounds of the upper extremities, 10. Associated injuries included wounds of the lung and liver, as well as perforations of the subclavian vein, subclavian artery, and blood vessels of the chest wall. There are sharp force injuries to Madison's left forearm and hand that could best be described as defensive in nature. This indicates that she was awake and attempting to block a sharp force attack for a very brief period of time before becoming overwhelmed and unable to defend herself. Number 3. Given the context of the attack against Kaylee and the variety of injuries to Madison, it is likely that at least some of her wounds, the sharp force wounds to the scalp, face, and neck, were inflicted when she was no longer able to defend herself. Kaylee suffered from multiple forms of lethal force, distinguishing her from every other murder victim in this incident. As described in the autopsy report, post-mortem examination showed a well-developed adult female with stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 24 plus. Stab and incised wounds of the chest, 11, and stab and incised wounds of the upper extremities, 3. Associated injuries included puncture of the outer table of the skull, injuries to the teeth and tongue, perforations of the subclavian artery and vein, and hemorrhage into the chest cavities. Blunt force injuries included scalp lacerations, bleeding around the brain, and nasal fracture, as well as scrapes on the nose and cheeks, bruising around the eyes, and patterned bruises extending across the lower face. Petechial hemorrhages were present in the eyes and mouth. There was no evidence of natural disease that would have caused or contributed to death. Number 5. To be clear, Kaylee suffered from extensive sharp force injuries well beyond that suffered by the other victims, including repetitive stabbings to her face. She suffered from a blunt force attack to the head, which broke her nose and cracked her skull. So something hit her. Okay, that's something that I don't think that we've heard before in way of like sequence of events. So her nose getting broken and a crack in her skull came from being hit by a blunt force object. Broken nose and cracked skull at the same time. And she suffered asphyxial injuries, which involved the covering of her mouth, causing extensive injury to the inside of her lips. This context of multiple weapons and multiple types of lethal force suggests multiple attackers, as will be discussed in a subsequent section. Number 6, there is no evidence which suggests that either Madison or Kaylee were attacked out of their bed, as their feet are generally free from bloody transfer from bleeding injuries suffered while upright. There are also no large areas of blood pooling or dripping on the floor. Number 7, the evidence suggests that after both victims were killed or unresponsive, they were posed in their shared bed. Kaylee was moved from a position with her head on her pillow to partially atop of Madison. Then the comforter was placed over them both. And see, I think that maybe the comforter was placed on them as they were left. I'm not taking it out of the realm of possibility that someone posed the bodies. I'm not. But I'm also thinking of other things the way we do for everything else here. And again, like I've already mentioned, there's a possibility that Kaylee was alive enough to realize what was happening and move herself closer to Maddie before she finally succumbed to her injuries. That's a big possibility. Number 8, the extensive and close-up nature of the attacks on Kaylee and Madison, along with the blood spatter evident in the room and the moving of Kaylee's body, are evidence that the suspect's upper bodies, face, hair, hands, arms, chest area, would have been covered in blood. I don't think you have to include the posing to know that they would have been covered in blood, but either way. Number 9, all available physical and bloody evidence suggests that these were the first victims. that they were specifically sought out on the 3rd floor, and that the suspects then moved downstairs to the 2nd floor, where at least one of the suspects was observed by Xana Kernodle. This would have been covered in blood. This what would have been covered in blood? What is he talking about? This is a horribly written paragraph. All available physical and blood evidence suggests that these were the first victims, that they were specifically sought out on the 3rd floor, and that the suspects then moved downstairs to the 2nd floor, where at least one of the suspects was observed by Xana Kernodle. This would have been covered in blood. This what? This what? This person? This suspect would have been covered in blood, I guess? I also don't understand why they keep doing, like, I know that this is like part of like whatever they're trying to think happened here. And I guess that they're using this and trying to say, yeah, the suspect would have been covered in blood. I guess what they're trying to do this for is because Dylan is claiming that she heard someone, and they are trying to say that it would have had to have been Xana instead of Kaylee. And that's why they keep wanting Xana to be attacked in the kitchen or attacked in the living room area or attacked by the table or something like that. But again, they're going based off of a story that they have no proof of existence of, other than the fact that 4 people died. You know what I mean? Like, there's no physical proof of anything that Dylan has said. And we have to remember that Dylan did not call Bethany. Bethany called Dylan. And we have to ask ourselves, if Bethany would have never called Dylan, would Dylan have ever called Bethany or called anyone and been like, oh my God, there's someone in the house? What would the story have been if Bethany wouldn't have called Dylan? Because it's that phone call that sets off everything else. None of this works for me. None of this works for me. C, 2nd floor, Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle. Ethan and Xana were discovered in Xana's bedroom. Ethan was in her bed and Xana was on the floor next to it. Both were deceased. Though a complete linear reconstruction of events is not possible, the available physical evidence supports the following relevant events and conclusions. Number 1. Xana ordered and subsequently received a DoorDash food delivery at 3:59 a.m. She received her food on the 1st floor, then moved it upstairs to the kitchen. There is evidence in crime scene photos. Xana was later reported to have been active on TikTok at approximately 4:12 a.m. This is her last documented activity. But see, I still have an issue with this because in the self-authenticating records for TikTok, it's not 3:16 a.m. like it's maybe a time zone. I mean, it's not 3:12 a.m. like it's a time zone issue. It says 3:16 a.m. in what was going to be presented in the self-authenticating records for Xana's TikTok account to the court for trial was 3:16 in the morning. So it's interesting that he's using the time from the PCA when something else had already been filed. But then again, that was filed to the court after Brent Turvey's report. I wonder if he knows that the time changed. I wonder if he knows that the time changed. Huh. Number 2, because she was attacked and found dead in her bedroom on the floor, it is evident that Xana subsequently retreated to her bedroom but was followed. See, there's no proof of that either. There is no proof of that either. There is no proof that Xana was attacked outside of her bedroom. We know it's not her blood on the pool table, and we know that it's not blood in the kitchen, that it's something else that wasn't blood. So there's no proof, just like they say there's no proof that Ethan was attacked outside of the bedroom. There's no proof that Kaylee and Maddie, blah, blah, whatever. There's no technical freaking proof that Xana was attacked outside of her bedroom. The plate with the food that looks like Jack in the Box fries is in her bedroom on the floor. Just because there's a Jack in the Box bag in the kitchen does not mean that she was attacked in the kitchen. She could have been attacked in her bedroom. There's no proof at all of what they keep doing with this. I just don't understand why they can't just admit that on both ends, that it's all just theory, that there's no proof of it. Number 3, Xana suffered extensive sharp force injuries along with abrasions and contusions of head, torso, and extremities, as described in the autopsy report. Post-mortem examination showed a well-developed adult female with stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, 23, so almost as many as Kaylee. Stab wounds of the chest, 7, and abdominal, 4. Incised and puncture wounds of the back, 3. Incised wounds of the upper extremities, 25. And incised wounds of the lower extremities, 5. Associated injuries include punctures of the outer table of the skull, perforations of the jugular vein, heart, lung, and pulmonary blood vessels, hemorrhage into the chest cavities, and wounds extending into the bones of the hand. Additional injuries included scrapes and bruises on the face, torso, and extremities. These injuries appear to be the result of an extended attack, which ended once she was no longer fighting back. An extended attack that lasted how freaking long? See, I'm still under the assumption in my brain that both floors were attacked at the same time. I really feel like both floors were attacked at the same time. I felt like that since the very beginning, and I haven't seen anything to make me unbelieve that. You know? Number 4, Xana is also the only victim with blood on her feet, evidencing the fact that she is the only victim attacked upright and out of bed. That's, I mean, up out of the bed, obviously, because she's on the floor, but her feet having blood on them doesn't mean all that other stuff. It could have literally just been from the attack because we see everything on the floor. It's like she literally was rolling around on the floor fighting as hard as she possibly could. The blood could have came from that, from her own blood on the floor and her foot getting in it as she's like fighting off the person and they're literally wrestling around. You literally can see her freaking fingerprints. And as she's getting like pulled by the person, it seems like, because there's just a huge line of fingerprints in her blood, streaks of where you can tell she was getting pulled by someone. This is so gross. Again, because she encountered a suspect while eating her food and watching TikTok videos on the second floor. 5. The attack suffered by Xana was incidental to the intended target of the attack, which will be discussed in a later section of this report. It is most reasonable to infer that she was attacked because she was a direct witness to a suspect coming downstairs from the 3rd floor. The attack suffered in her bedroom, which involved an extensive defense throughout the entire space, was evidently sufficient to wake Ethan. This would have necessitated his death to kill a living witness as well. Now, Ethan seems to be the only one that was quick. If you go back and you listen to the autopsy stuff, he was upright. He was awake. He was upright on his right elbow. But it seems like the attack on Ethan was very deliberate and fast to get the biggest opponent and opposition out of the way. Out of the way. And you know what else I also wonder? I also wonder if those Erica messages were fake to get him out of the house, to get him to argue with Xana, for him to think that maybe she was cheating on him and then to get into a huge ass fight so that he wasn't in the house that night. I really have been wondering if that maybe had something to do with those messages, because why would you need to send that message twice? Why would you need to send that message twice? If you didn't get a response the first time, why would you need to send it twice? Why are you trying to get that little earworm in there? I feel like it could have been to try to get him out of the house. I really do. 1 second. Okay, I had to tell him to turn his TV down. Slade's been watching Suits, that lawyer show. I watch some of it with him sometimes. It's interesting. Interesting to say the least. Number 6. Ethan did not present with blood on his feet, despite the floor of Xana's bedroom being covered with blood in many areas. This indicates that he was never fully upright and out of the bed during his attack. The entirety of the attack suffered by Ethan took place on Xana's bed and would not have lasted very long. Would not have lasted very long. While it says up here that Xana's was an extended attack. So for Xana, he knows that it took place and it took a while. And he knows that for Ethan, it was quick. That's why I'm telling you, I feel like they were attacked simultaneously, and that Ethan was taken out first and foremost because they knew that he was there, and they knew they had to get him out of the way because he was their biggest obstacle. And I really feel like the Erica text was to try to get him out of that house. And if the Erica text was to try to get him out of that house, doesn't that also kind of tell you that if that is the case on that journey, on that theory journey, then that would also mean that maybe Xana was the target, or maybe Xana was one of the targets? I don't know. I wish we knew more about that whole Erica situation. Okay, number 7. Ethan suffered the least number of injuries of any of the victims. As described in the autopsy report, post-mortem examination showed a well-developed adult male with stab and incised wounds of the scalp, face, and neck, a stab wound of the upper chest, 1 incised wounds of the upper extremities, 6, and stab and incised wounds of the lower extremities, 6. Associated injuries include perforations of the jugular vein, subclavian vein, and subclavian artery. And remember, there were 2 different weapon profiles just on his legs. And those damn cuts on his legs were like the width of his entire leg. Like they're big, giant freaking gashes. Number 8. The incised wounds to Ethan's upper extremities are best described as defensive in nature. These defensive wounds indicate that he was awake and blocking a sharp force weapon with his right and left hands from multiple directions. That's interesting. It is not reasonable to think that Ethan would have remained in his bed after waking up or being awake while Xana was being attacked in front of him. This evidence and context begin to suggest the existence of a second attacker. This issue will be addressed in a later section of this report. The extensive and close-up nature of the attacks on Xana and Ethan, along with the blood spatter and blood smears evident in the room, are evidence that the suspect's entire bodies, face, hair, hands, arms, chest area, legs, feet, all of it, would have been covered in blood. D. No murder weapons identified. Despite intensive investigative efforts with respect to identifying the sharp force weapon or weapons used in this case, none have been identified. The same is true for the blunt force weapon or weapons used. To be clear, the murder weapons in this case remain unidentified at large, and that is an actual fact. They have not been able to identify specifically what exactly it was that actually caused all these injuries. Thank you for the 20 accomplished day. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Jules, what do you think about this? EC received the text at 12:43 a.m. from Erica. The exact same... oh, shit. You right. Let me read this whole thing. Holy shit. Yeah, you are right. It is the exact same time. What do you think about this? Ethan received the text at 12:43 a.m. from Erica, and remember, it's in quotations in this timeline. The exact same time Lakeland was taking videos in the bathroom at 11:22 King. Remember, of Ethan's freaking clothes on the floor like a weirdo. Is she possibly Erica? Timestamps that match up are just odd to me. Oh, they're odd to me too, especially Molly McMichael, the DoorDasher, being in the area right at 3:51 as Dylan's adding a contact and Emily Alon is sending Xana $14. That's one. But that's exactly true. 12:43, 12:44-ish. Yeah, that's the time that apparently she was taking the pictures or whatever of Ethan's clothes on the bathroom floor. That's very possible. I didn't even think to put those two together. And she is in quotations. That is very strange. That is very strange. I don't know. The stuff with Lakeland is really interesting too, because Dylan makes it sound that she was like so wasted that she just had to like chaperone her and take care of her for a little while over at her house before then she just lets her walk home all by herself. And it's been less than an hour at max, but most likely less than an hour since they actually got back to 1122. And suddenly, off of a little bit of popcorn, she's sober enough to not just go home, but to walk home by herself. And it's like a 15-minute walk at almost 2 o'clock in the morning. It's really strange. Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know. Everything with the Erica stuff is, I mean, the cheating thing, I'm not even really like even paying attention to that part, except for the fact that it could cause a divide. And considering what the hell happened here, it just seems like it is possible that there's some reasoning, that there's some ulterior reasoning behind it. Yeah, that timestamp is strange. So I wonder if it was like, oh my God. So what if she sent a picture of boy clothes that were on the floor to Ethan, and it's like she's for some reason thinks it's not Ethan's clothes, and that's why she sent it to him because it's in the second floor bathroom, and her instant reaction was like, oh, you're being cheated on. But then I guess it wouldn't account for the picture beforehand. Or, well, actually, it doesn't say that there was any pictures at all. It just says that it was a message. But there's still a possibility because we know that they're not telling us every little damn thing. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that they weren't his. You know why? Because how many people were there before they even left to go, before the girls left to go to the corner club? Some other girls' boyfriends were all up in that house. Ethan hung around for a minute before they went to Sigma Chi. Like, there was so much back and forth. There was so much back and forth. I'm pretty sure there is clothes in there that don't belong to the people that were staying there. But yeah, that timestamp match is interesting. That timestamp match is super interesting. Okay, modus operandi is a Latin term that means method of operating. It refers to the manner in which a crime has been committed. A criminal's modus operandi is comprised of choices and behaviors that are intended to assist in the completion and concealment of a crime. Black's Law Dictionary translates the phrase modus operandi as method of operation or doing things, and states that it is used by police and criminal investigators to describe the particular method of a criminal's activity. Specifically, a modus operandi is comprised of individual and heuristic choices and behaviors that are intended to assist in the completion of a crime. The physical and behavioral evidence evident in this crime evidence. Always using the word evidence in a different way here, okay. The physical and behavioral evidence evident in this crime evidence, the following elements related to, what kind of Dr. Seuss ass shit is this, Turvey? The physical and behavioral evidence evident in this crime evidence the following elements related to modus operandi. Say that 5 times fast, holy shit. A, planning and precaution. The elements of planning and precaution demonstrated in the modus operandi of this crime are low skill with respect to planning and execution, and high skill with respect to precaution. 1, planning. Whatever planning may have taken place with respect to the crime, it resulted in an extensive number of victims with an excess of bloody transfer and bloody clothing on the part of the suspects. This took additional time to both effect and clean up before they could leave. Number 2, precautionary acts. The precautionary acts in this case include the execution of living witnesses. Well, that's also an assumption. See, right there, that's an assumption. The precautionary acts in this case include the execution of living witnesses. That's an assumption. They don't know that for sure. They could have all been some sort of target for some reason. We don't know. We have no idea. The cleanup of bloody hands, feet/footwear, and clothing before leaving, and the disposal of said clothing along with the weapons used. Direct evidence of this cleanup can be found in at least some of the dilute blood transfer, which was located in different areas of the home. Indirect evidence includes the absence of bloody transfer from feet and hands, despite the movements of suspects within the homes, the necessary opening of doors, and the absence of bloody footwear patterns at the scene in general. And again, I can say, okay, I understand why we don't have any feet or anything, footwear, impressionary. It doesn't matter if you've got covers on, you're still leaving some sort of transfer prints. I can understand that not coming out of Kaylee and Maddie's area, but there is no way in shit that the person walks out of Xana's room and just does not track blood with them. There's just no way. There's just no way. All of this would have required an extensive amount of time at the scene to clean, perhaps hours, which is inconsistent with the state's theory that these crimes were committed within a time interval less than 15 to 20 minutes subsequent to 4 a.m. Yeah, what is it? 1.5 to maybe 3 minutes total is what they're giving? No. No. What I want is the body cam. I don't actually know if there was body cam. I need to go back in and check. But what I really want is if there's cam of Brett Payne, and I think it was Gilbertson and Talbot, running around the house, doing all the fake stabby motions and trying to like get the timing down. I want that. I want to see that. B, number of suspects. At least 2 suspects were involved in this attack. This is indicated by the fact that multiple weapons were used against Kaylee, that multiple types of lethal force were used against Kaylee, and that Ethan and Xana appear to have been attacked at the same time. Yeah, they sure does. This is inconsistent with the state's theory that these crimes were committed solely by one individual. Posing. As mentioned prior, posing is evident in the present case. This is based on the following facts and evidence. This refers to intentionally arranging the scene for effect. In the present case, the bodies of Kaylee and Madison were posed together after the lethal attack suffered by both, and then covered together with a comforter. And I've already given my opinion on that. I don't need to keep repeating it every time he repeats his. D, staging. Crime scene staging refers to an attempt to confuse or misdirect a law enforcement investigation by altering, fabricating, or planting evidence in relation to a crime scene. In the present case, a K-bar knife sheath was discovered in the crime scene by law enforcement. Evidence of staging with respect to this item of evidence is as follows. The sheath was found precariously placed just slightly under the body of Madison Mogen and partially covered by the comforter that was placed atop the midsection of her body by the suspects. It could not have fallen accidentally into this location because it's tucked under her skin. You can see a piece of her skin, and you can see the way that it's partially covered. We have those photos. Number 2, the sheath was new and unused as indicated by the absence of damage or wear to the leather. Yeah, it was new looking for sure. For sure. Number 3, the sheath was face down and had received only a few areas of minute blood spatter, impact, or aspirated while resting atop a sheet with significant impact spatter all around. The inconsistency of blood spatter dispersion and density indicate transfers occurring at different times, under different conditions, with different levels of intensity. See, that's another thing. When it comes to the knife sheath, I've also wondered if part of the aspiration could have been from like one of the girls. And if you consider the fact that maybe, so don't consider the fact, but consider the theory of that possibly Kaylee was alive a little while afterwards and like moved that way, then it's possible that if the knife sheath was there, then the aspiration happened as she was cuddled up towards Maddie with her face facing that direction. And maybe she coughed a little bit or something like that before she passed away, and it went that way. Because I don't really see another way that it could have gotten like the way that it is on there, because there are little bitty tiny specks on there without the transfer. Like it would have had to have happened afterwards. It would have had to have happened afterwards. So that's a possibility. That's a possibility that I've been thinking of because I've been trying to think of all the things. And again, I'm not against it being a problem. Obviously the knife sheath is a problem regardless. But if somehow it was there while Kaylee, maybe because of everything that we're learning now, I mean, even the Goncalveses know this little tidbit, that it wasn't instant, okay, that there was suffering, there was time that went on, okay. So if if it happened to have been there, as she might have maybe still been having a little bit of energy to move her body over towards Maddie, that maybe she aspirated because her face was in that direction and it just went that way. It's a big possibility. Big possibility. The sheath was face down and had received only a few areas of minute blood spatter. Okay, I read that part. The inconsistency of blood spatter dispersion and density indicate transfers occurring at different times under different conditions with different levels of intensity. Number 4, the sheath was placed at that location without receiving bloody transfer from the hands or fingers of the suspect that did it. This means it was done after the attack / posing, but also after the suspect had washed their hands subsequent to lean up efforts and the scene. You mean cleanup efforts? Yeah, either gloves being removed or something like that, because there's no way it just falls that way, like under her that way. So regardless, it feels like somebody put it there on purpose. But there's no like hand. There's nothing to show that the same hand that was doing all of the attacks actually handled the knife sheath and placed it there or touched it ever, like literally ever. So either hands were washed or gloves were taken off, but that would have been really ignorant to touch it with your bare hands, you know? So maybe glove replacement. I don't know how they're thinking up with that one. Not really quite sure what they're thinking with that one. Washing hands and then touching it kind of doesn't make any sense at all. You know what I mean? E, primary target. The primary target in this case was Kaylee Goncalves. She was specifically targeted by the suspects, and the rest of the victims in the home were collateral. That's a big talk. This is based on the following facts and evidence. Kaylee's room was the least convenient and most risky to access in the home, yet she and Madison were attacked first. Kaylee's room doesn't have shit to do with this, Turvey, because she wasn't found in her bedroom. So why does it say Kaylee's room was the least convenient and most risky to access in the home, yet she and Madison were attacked first? Did you mean Maddie's room was the least convenient and most risky to access? Because with that statement, I'll agree with you. Kaylee's room had a balcony and a lot of access. So, see, careless mistakes. 2, the attack suffered by Kaylee was the most extensive, involving the most injuries, and was therefore the most time-consuming. See, I don't really know if that's true. I feel like Kaylee and Xana had this, like, pretty much, like, were on par. The thing is that Kaylee's face was so destroyed. So people just want to instantly say that she was attacked worse, which she was technically, I guess, because she was completely disfigured in her face. But what we just read and what we've been reading is they had the same amount of injuries to that area. Like Kaylee's says like 24 or 25 plus, and Xana's was like 23, 24, something around there, like the same amount. So I feel like they had very similar amounts of injuries. But Kaylee's face is, I think, again, the reason why they say most extensive, most injuries, blah, blah, blah. I feel like as much of a fight that Xana put up, it wasn't a quick fight. We just read all of that. It wasn't fast. I think they probably took around the same amount of time. Because, you know, at the end, I think everything that happened to both girls levels out to be about the same. Kaylee was stabbed repeatedly in the face until she was unrecognizable. No other victim suffered this amount of close-up facial attention or damage. That's true. 4, Kaylee suffered multiple types of lethal force, stabbing, blunt force trauma, and asphyxiation. All other victims suffered only one form of lethal force. This level of unnecessary close interaction and brutality are characteristics of primary targets in cases motivated by anger and rage. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. Motive. The physical and behavioral evidence in this case evidence an anger retaliatory motivation. As explained in Turvey from 2022, this is evidenced by crime scene behaviors that involve a great deal of rage, either towards a specific person, group, or institution, or a symbol of either. Right there in your own statement, either towards a specific group or a symbol of either, like you are basically saying that this could have been a more than one target situation, like in your own Citation, Turvey. You know, it is also evidenced by what may be referred to as evidence of overkill, injury beyond that needed to cause death, involving the repeated infliction of injury subsequent to the application of lethal force. In combination with multiple types of lethal force against one victim and not others, this motive is all but confirmed. Should new evidence become available, this examiner would necessarily reconsider any of the relevant findings of this report. And then it goes on to his references. So let me just straight up ask the obvious question. Where in his report are the signature wounds that him and Chris Whitcomb have come out here doing all of this about under the girls' necks and on the shoulders? Why is none of that in his January 2025 report? He says he has the photos. He says he has the autopsy reports. How come he doesn't mention that? We know why. We know why. I'm glad we got to read that. I'm glad we got to read that. And again, I know the girls have pretty much matching neck injuries. Okay, the two under the neck. But when it comes to the shoulder, he's full of shit. Kaylee's is like this, and you can see down into the bone. Maddie's is down on the top of her lower breast, and they're at an angle. They're not signature, parallel, whatever the frick he tried to say. Yeah, I don't know why he would come out here saying that so freaking hardcore, and it's not even in his freaking report that he filed. Not even in his freaking report. That's crazy. So we finished going over his entire report, and we really didn't have any breaks or really big interruptions or anything like that in just at 2 hours. That's not bad at all for going through the entire thing. Now, what will eventually happen with this one, I'll take clips from it of important things, put it on the clip channel. I'll also go in and edit just me reading without any commentary and just have the page itself up on the screen, and it'll be placed over on the archive channel. On the archive channel eventually here. That's something that I've decided with these. Instead of going in and re-recording all of it, I just read it a little bit slower so that it's easier for me to go in and clip me just reading it for the people that don't want commentary, don't want to have the whole live aura of a thing. It'll just be me reading the document itself, and then the clip channel will have the smaller fragments of things. But I am really curious as to why he didn't mention anything about that in this, whenever now he's coming out and speaking so much about these so-say signature wounds that just don't seem to actually be there. I guess maybe he just thought that we were never going to see autopsy reports. I'm really questioning why there are people coming out here. Only mention of ritualistic wounds was the FBI until Brent Turvey came out here talking about it in his interviews. So he's coming out here and mimicking things being said by the feds that he doesn't see or believe in himself, then, is what that tells me. That he is coming out here and repeating things that he's seeing on from other people's reports. You know? They don't at all. Again, Kaylee's is across the shoulder, all the way up here, down to the bone. That's this way, horizontal, not two vertical, parallel, matching lines, okay? Kaylee's is all the way across horizontal, all the way up here. Maddie's is down here on her upper part of her left breast, and they are at an angle. So Kaylee's is horizontal, and Maddie's is all the way down here at an angle. They're not anywhere close enough to be considered matching at all. No, not at all. No. So I don't know. I don't know why he's coming out here saying things now that he wasn't willing to put in his report when they were getting ready for trial. You'd think that consensus of his would stay the same, considering he's looking at reports and photos. So I don't know. He has some explaining to do, but he's not responding. Because again, just like Moscow, I'm just a person on the internet in Texas that doesn't have any power or authority, and they don't give a fuck that I have questions. Eventually they're going to. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not going to stop with this. There's a final. ending to this entire thing. And eventually they're going to have to answer for why they came out here and lied. I just don't understand why there aren't people of authority questioning them, like other experts who see that they've come out and said all these things and then compare it to the reports and stuff that we have. Like, where are their own peers when it comes to holding them accountable? Where is that? That's what I'd like to see. Yeah, no. That's what I'd like to see. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. I'll have something to post in the morning for Monday, but then we are doing Moscow Monday, where now, since we have gone over the inventory report last Monday, now we are going to read the initial narrative, which I don't know why the initial narrative isn't just a continuation of Noon's narrative, because he was the first on scene. The initial narrative in the reports is written by Gunderson. So what we're going to do is read the entire initial report, see if there's anything that we missed from before, see if there's anything that we need to FOIA that we haven't FOIA'd yet. Same MO every single Moscow Monday, but we will also watch some of the body cam from Connor's channel that is associated with this narrative report. So that'll be tomorrow, probably like 6:45 or 7:15, a little bit earlier than we have been doing stuff. That's a series that we're going to be continuing. So I would like for it to be at a better, not so late time, so that we can have people from all over, because we have people here from all over, be in on the Moscow Monday ones. I can't really go live on Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays until after 3:15-ish. And then, well, Friday, sometimes I take the Friday off and have the whole day off on Friday, so that's whatever. But like Mondays and Wednesdays, I can't go live until like 3 something at the earliest. So maybe we'll do like 4:15, maybe 5:15, something like that. I don't know. It'll be earlier. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. Thank you again so much for the gifted memberships. Thank you for being here, Penguin, as a member for 8 months. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for the super stickers and the super chats. Thank you for that timeline thing, because that is interesting. The 1243 timestamp being the same. It is really crazy. Didn't you say also, Lady Di, that was something that was also written in Barbara Wolf's report? I think you said, right? Is that what you said? I think you said it was something about Wolf's report. Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys caring about going through all of this stuff. I really do. Thank you. Yeah, I think you said Wolf's report, something like that. I think so. So we're going to go through all the rest of them too. So again, I'll have a poll up for Tuesday for which ones you guys want me to go over Tuesday evening, because the Tuesday morning-ish live is going to be the Chapter 14 review of Broken Plea. I've been able to get the schedule figured out to where we will be doing the very last chapter of Broken Plea probably like 11:45 a.m. on Thursday, because it's 3 o'clock my time that the Custody Queen channel is going to have Cyray there to interview. And I want to do an instant reaction to the interview, like a half hour after. So our morning Thursday will be the end of Broken Plea. Then we'll do our review of Cyray's interview. And then Friday will mark our day 1 of chapter 1 of going over Cyray's The Truth Line book. So that all worked out. That all worked out perfectly. Longtime lurker finally got the membership. Oh, well, I appreciate that, Penguin, and thank you for the $1.99. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And we will also go back in and do like a further look into the wounds themselves so that we can clarify everything that we've been saying. I know that Bronx Tales did a really good detailed visual of what the wounds would look like given the descriptions of just on their own, but we'll do a live review of the wounds that they're claiming are signature, I'll go in and get the clips of what they actually said so that we can review their words coming out of their mouths themselves. Then we will go back and look at the way that it's described, and we'll do our own renditions of injury wounds. We'll see what ChatGPT, or maybe I'll get back on Midjourney if that's still a thing. That's where I first learned how to like do image creation and stuff like that. When I first learned print on demand, that was like the first time I was on Discord, was learning Midjourney. I don't know. I'll figure something out so that we can go over them ourselves more in depth, because some things need to be definitely looked into a lot more detailed, specifically by themselves. So we'll do that soon. I'm sorry? Where does it say he canceled? As far as we're understanding, it's supposed to be happening on the 16th. I know that he was supposed to talk to them before and it didn't happen and something had to be changed, but they had like just said that he was going to be there on the 16th at like 1 p.m. Pacific time. It's still there. July 16th at 1 p.m. See? Oh, it's not showing you. Hold on. Yeah, it's right here. One interview, real answers. Well, I honestly highly doubt it. Like, I'm sorry. And I'll say it again. They do not know hardly anything factual about this case. They have proven that. The Custody Queens channel, Ron included. I know he countered back on Chris Holland about the blood in the kitchen being Xana's, but then just let it go. They are not evidence-based enough to be interviewing these experts in this case. Sorry, not sorry about it. I don't give a shit that they are attorneys. They entertain the most ridiculous, nonsensical bullshit. If you follow them on Twitter, you will see it yourselves. They don't know facts. So these people are going to come in here like they have, and they're going to say stuff, and they don't have the retention of the information in order to be able to do this fully. So we'll see what kind of answers actually come from an interview like this. We already know, why this channel keeps being picked for this. It's very obvious, That's just me. That's just me. But I'm going to let you guys go. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Get some good sleep. Don't let Monday bother you. Don't let Monday bother you. It's just another day. I will see you guys soon. Get some rest. Oh, it's been a weekend. Get some rest. We got a lot to do. So get ready. Get ready. See y'all. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that the notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives.